to start by playing you this clip because we talked about immigration to start the show. And my opinion is that Tom Homan and the Trump administration said they were prioritizing going after violent criminals. And my point was, well, it doesn't appear that way when you see a bunch of these ICE agents outside of courtrooms tackling nonviolent criminals and hanging out outside of Home Depot. It doesn't appear to me that they're making a priority out of those that are violent criminals. That was the point that I was trying to make, and this got really heated to start the show when we talked about immigration. Have a listen to this.
Not related to what you're saying.
I figure the prioritization
I think
would be
you
around
lack the
tracking
cognitive
and
ability to connect the dots.
No, I think I do, and I think this comes down to...
Let's try this again. A priority doesn't mean the outcome is guaranteed.
I understand that.
So pointing out a bunch of nonviolent criminal aliens were arrested doesn't mean they're not prioritizing violent criminal aliens.
Okay, well, it doesn't appear to me that they are. And if
but
you
that's,
think that
again,
they are,
that's an opinion and not an argument.
Well, if you think that they are, then you're entitled to your opinion. But I don't believe that they are. When you're tackling people and nonviolent criminals outside of courthouses in front of Home Depot or teachers, I've seen the videos.
Not a question of priority.
You don't even need to track anybody for that. They're showing up to the courthouse and telling you who they are. So,
and that's not a question of priority.
To track the criminals.
These things you're pointing out are two different situations.
You pointed out that 40% of those deported are violent criminals. That's outsized from the percentage of legal immigrants that are here that are actually violent criminals. So Trump is actually punching above his weight when it comes to deporting violent criminals.
I want violent criminals out of this country.
Well, all criminals.
Clear on that.
So he's doing really well.
Hold on a second. So you want accountability for criminals? Is that right, Tim?
Yes.
Okay. Then why would you support a 34-count felon?
He's not a felon.
This is the craziest whataboutism I've ever seen.
What was he charged with?
Not whataboutism.
What's the criminal charge?
Is he a 34-count felon, convicted felon? Yes or no?
No.
Yes, he is.
No, he's not.
He wasn't sentenced, but he was convicted by a jury. Was he not?
It's not.
Was he found guilty or not guilty of 34 counts?
What were the charges?
I'm asking you a question.
The answer is no.
Why do you answer the question? Maybe you're the one with the cognitive difficulties.
The answer is no. The answer is no. The answer is no again, no again, no again. Now tell me what he was charged with.
So wait, the jury did not find Donald Trump guilty?
Correct.
Okay, so it is very, very difficult to have a good faith debate with somebody who cannot admit the obvious. Now, you can disagree with the charges that were put forth. You can say that they were misdemeanors. You can make the argument of why you think they were only misdemeanors and they were put to the level of felony just to go after Donald Trump. You could make that argument until the cows come home. And the fact of the matter is it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what your opinions are on the validity of the case. The only thing that I said was a jury found him guilty on 34 felony counts. Now, that is a factually accurate statement. You can disagree, just like you can disagree with a jury that found O.J. Simpson not guilty of double murder. Of course, I think O.J. Simpson was a double murderer. But if somebody asked me, was O.J. Simpson found guilty of double murder, I would say no. I think the jury got it wrong. So instead of Tim Pool saying, I think the jury got it wrong, he's flat out being disingenuous by saying, no, the jury did not find him guilty on 34 felony counts. According to our laws, according to our courts, that's exactly what the jury did. That was the only point that I was trying to make. And I want you to listen right after that. When we start talking about the morals or the lack thereof of Donald Trump. And I try to state the case to Tim that, listen, you have a daughter. Are you comfortable with this guy being the president of the United States? What if he went into your daughter's dressing room? I try to make that claim. And I want you to listen to this because I think it's very important to see how quickly Tim Pool doesn't want to talk about the morals or lack thereof of Donald Trump and immediately brings up Barack Obama. This is fascinating to me. Have a listen to this. You have a 6-year-old daughter, right? Which, by the way, congratulations.
No, I don't.
Oh, I thought you had a daughter. I
do, but she's not 6.
Well, by the way, congratulations on that.
I appreciate it.
So
now we're nice again.
I like good-spirited debates. I like this stuff. So, Tim, if your daughter was 12 or I don't know how old she is, but if she was 12 or 13 years old and she was in a pageant and a creepy man went in there without her permission and talked about it sexually on the Howard Stern show, which he did.
Okay, wait, hold on.
Yep.
Were we
I don't know what's funny about that.
Were we just talking? We're just talking about the court case.
We're talking about the moral aspect of Donald Trump now because we've talked about morals.
Oh, he's a pig.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have no.
He's got serious decorum problems and attitude problems.
Forget about
I
the.
tell you
He
what.
did stop
I
World War
appreciate
III,
that.
though, so
Forget
that's-
about the legal argument for a moment, okay? Forget about the legalities of Donald Trump. I'm just asking.
So he's not a felon.
Why should we forget about that?
Well, because I'm asking about morals now. I'm talking about the moral aspect of why I don't support him, okay? And I'm trying to have a conversation with you about morals. Are you comfortable? You're comfortable with the leader of the free world being a liable sexual abuser who's had dozens of women that have accused him of rape or sexual assault, including his ex-wife
No,
in
that's
court
all
documents?
bad. That's all bad.
It's all really. It's kind of really bad, isn't it?
You know what? I have a trouble with the United States of America, especially
Yeah.
because Barack Obama murdered a 16-year-old American citizen by bombing a civilian restaurant in Yemen.
You see, in the world of politics and debate and radio and TV, we call that a pivot. You see how quickly he pivoted from Donald Trump? That's my biggest issue here. I'm trying to make the case for why Donald Trump, in my opinion, is a horrible human being with no moral character. So what Tim says is, well, he's a pig, but let's talk about Barack Obama. First of all, there's no evidence to suggest that Barack Obama intentionally tried to kill anybody. Number two, there is evidence, proven, that Donald Trump is a criminal. Now, whether you want to say he's a felonious criminal or not, okay, fine. Have a debate on that. Jury found him guilty on 34 felony counts. You can disagree with it. You can say they got it wrong. That's fine. You can have that conversation. Donald Trump is also a liable sexual abuser. And the reason why I brought up Tim's daughter, my understanding is she's somewhere around 6 months old. As I said, fast forward 12 or 13 years, if your daughter was in a beauty pageant, God forbid, would you want some creepy old man going into the locker room when she's unchanging for sexual purposes? Of course the answer would be no. There's no father that would want that. And I tried to make that case to Tim, and do you see how quickly he pivoted to Barack Obama? Very, very disappointing. Now, here's where we really got into it, and Tim Pool is trying to make the case that because I couldn't name the 34 felony counts, and because I couldn't go into detail and I didn't have it in front of me, everything that Donald Trump was charged and convicted of, that somehow I don't know what I'm talking about when I say Donald Trump was found guilty by a jury of 34 felony counts. And because I can't dive into the case and give you specifics on exactly what he did or didn't do, Tim's trying to discredit me because I can't give you the list of all the felonies, which obviously I disagree with that argument altogether. It doesn't matter whether I know a lot about the case or not. Here's what we know. A jury found him guilty on 34 felony counts. You can disagree with the outcome. You can disagree with how the prosecution put those in place. You can disagree with the judge. You can disagree with the jury. But it doesn't change my opinion, and that's where things get heated because he's saying, name the crime. Name what Donald Trump did. Have a listen to this.
I'm going to try this one more time. If you keep making non sequiturs,
It's not a non sequitur.
it is because I asked you a question, you've ignored it.
I haven't ignored it.
What was the case?
So here's what I know about the case. Okay? It's very simple.
Yeah.
Unlike Barack Obama, which you had mentioned he's a murderer, you don't want to talk about the fact that that's never been proven in a court of law. But you're
What
still,
does that have to do with what I asked you? Tell me about the
if
Eugene
something
Carroll
is-
case.
Because a jury found him liable for sexual abuse. I don't have to know everything about the case.
No, you
and
just believe
present
what you're
it to
told.
you. No, I believe in our
Okay,
justice system.
let's do this.
I believe in our justice system.
Here's how I operate. I will hear a claim and I will fact check it.
Sure.
And try and dig through the facts to see if there's merit. You will believe what you're told.
So everything on the right when it comes to Donald Trump, there's no merit to it, even though he's a
didn't say
convicted 34-count felon. But
not.
those were made up. Right, sure. And then
don't even know the crime.
I don't have to know the crime
Yes,
to
you
know
do.
that a jury found him guilty
You
in
do
a
need
court
to
of
know
law.
the
You
crime.
can disagree with the outcome.
do.
I disagree with the
Well,
O.J.
Nelson Mandela was a criminal too. He got locked up.
Hey, sometimes the justice system gets it wrong. I think we could agree on that.
So if you
Not
don't,
my type is
so
a better defense than the glove doesn't fit, I think.
I think the question. You know what? We can just pause right here and say to everybody who's listening. I think my point is I can tell you the facts of these cases and why I have doubts, and you don't know anything about them.
So here's a fact. Donald Trump is a 34-count felon. You can disagree with it, but you can say incorrect till the cows come home. He wasn't sentenced, but he was convicted on 34 felony counts. Now, you can
No, he
disagree
wasn't.
with that. Okay, you can disagree
Name
with it.
the crime.
That's fine.
Name the crime.
You don't have to name the crime.
Yes,
He's
you
a
do.
34-count felon.
You have to name the crime.
You have to name the crime. Factual. That's all I was being there. Factual. Oh, Brian, you don't know all the intricacies of the case. Name me all the felony counts. I don't have to. I didn't have it in front of me. Didn't have to. Yeah, I did say that, the Stormy Daniels stuff and misappropriating funds and the fraud. I brought all that stuff up. But the only point that I was trying to make, which went right over everybody in the studio, was a jury, and I'm speaking very slowly and distinctly here, a jury found him guilty on 34 felony counts. Now, if you think those felony counts were falsified and they were raised from misdemeanors to felonies, he is appealing it, and we will see if he wins in a court of law. The only point that I was trying to make is a jury found him guilty. And Tim flat out looks at me and says, no. How do you have a good faith debate with somebody like that? And then we go back to the E. Jean Carroll stuff. Again, E. Jean Carroll and Donald Trump was found liable for sexually abusing E. Jean Carroll. The judge in the case characterized it as rape. And this drives me nuts because, in a way, Tim is trying to make the case that because it happened 30 plus years ago, the case loses credibility. And then I use the term, Bill, what about Bill Cosby? He's saying he's not a rapist. What about Harvey Weinstein? He's not a rapist. It's such a ridiculous defense of Donald Trump here. Have a listen to this. I was talking also about the moralities of the case, and you were asking me about E. Jean Carroll. And while I don't want to go into the details of that case, I wasn't there.
You don't know either.
Okay, but he was.
I do.
Again, it goes back to what I said earlier.
What was he accused of doing?
He was found liable for sexual.
What does that mean?
The
What
judge
did he do?
characterized it as rape, as penetrating her with his fingers. A jury found that he was liable. Now, I wasn't there. You weren't there. But here's what I do know.
What year did it take place?
I don't recall. It was many years ago. But
It was 30 years ago.
But the point is, he has a track record with how he has treated women from a moral standpoint.
How was it? Let me ask you this question. How was it that E. Jean Carroll was able to bring a case 30 years after the fact?
You're asking me how?
It's very important to the case.
Okay, well,
it's actually a key component.
So by your argument, Bill Cosby's never raped anybody before.
I asked you a question.
And by your logic, because it was 30 years ago, it couldn't have happened. Why are you asking me that?
You're changing the subject again.
I'm not changing the subject at all. I think everybody can understand why Tim Pool brought that up. How was she able to do this if it was 30 years ago? Well, first of all, every case is different. And in some instances, especially when it comes to being liable, you can file a lawsuit against somebody. And then the jury decides whether it's credible or not. And I hate that argument. You hear that argument? Oh, well, it was 30 years ago. So does that mean Bill Cosby never raped anybody? Does that mean Harvey Weinstein never sexually? It's a ridiculous argument. I don't care if it was 30 years ago or 3 minutes ago or 100 years ago. Again, I go back to facts. The fact of the matter is a jury found that Donald Trump was liable for sexually abusing E. Jean Carroll. He is a liable sexual abuser. And Tim could try to defend Donald Trump until the cows come home. It doesn't change the fact that Donald Trump was found guilty, a jury of his peers, on 34 felony counts. And Donald Trump was found by a jury to be liable for sexually abusing E. Jean Carroll. Now, you can appeal, and you can do anything you want, and you can, say why you think it's unfair, and it was a Democrat jury. I hear all the excuses from the left, and Tim was just running down the list. And then he tried to say, because I don't know all the specifics with these 34 counts, and because I don't know all the specifics when it comes to the E. Jean Carroll case, I don't know what I'm talking about, so he's not guilty. He's not liable, which is absolutely not an argument. Now, in this clip, I finally get Tim to admit that Donald Trump, maybe not the greatest guy in the world. I finally get Tim, for once, to admit this.
Really nice. You could get
listen,
seriously
he's a really
hurt.
bad guy.
That's
A guy wouldn't say, when he talked about John McCain and he said he didn't respect him because he was captured. I tend not to like people who are captured. I felt that should have been disqualifying right there.
I was mad when he made fun of Rand Paul's hair, but then he started
that's
debating
different.
Hillary, and all
Listen,
the feelings of
Tim,
anger went away.
I don't like J.D. Vance. I don't like Ron DeSantis, but I'll tell you something I would never do. Shit on their military service. I respect anybody who serves this country, and I respect their military service. When you say you don't respect somebody because they were captured, can you admit and agree with me that that is just an awful, despicable thing to say?
Of course, I've said it before.
I don't think the Zoomers are going to care about that, though, because they've lost faith in all institutions.
When John McCain died, there are so many people that I know that just mercilessly attacked him for being a warmongering neocon. And I certainly didn't like him for those reasons. But Lord have mercy, the man was tortured for years.
For 5 years,
And was permanently disabled because of it. And
Right.
I said nothing but nice things when he died, despite really despising
Well,
him.
that's nice of you. I think that's the right thing to say. I thought when he took the microphone from that woman, if you remember that moment when the woman's called, Barack Hussein Obama, I thought that was a great moment for the country.
Absolutely.
And Tim, I guess my point is Donald Trump would never do that. And I
agree, yeah.
And that's the point I'm trying to make. We can have. So that I talk about that moment a lot with John McCain, right? Takes the microphone from the woman, and he says, "No, ma'am, Barack Obama's a decent man. We just disagree on policy." Something Donald Trump would never do, ever. So listen, I guess you could call that a win. I got Tim Pool to admit that Donald Trump's a bad guy for the most part. I got him to admit about some of the despicable things that Donald Trump has done and said. Notice how he's so quick about that, though, and immediately he wants to turn to defending Donald Trump. That's the part that I really don't understand. But at least I got him to admit that. That was the only point I was trying to make in that entire part of the podcast. Donald Trump was found guilty by a jury. Whether you think they're felonies or not is irrelevant. A jury found him guilty on 34 felony counts. That's the only argument that I was trying to make. We'll see if he wins on appeal. Donald Trump is a liable sexual abuser. A jury of his peers found him liable for sexual abuse. And by the way, I don't have all the evidence. Tim doesn't have all the evidence, even though he claims he knows everything about these cases. The jury got to see all the evidence. The public didn't get to see all of it. That's something else that kind of ticked me off a little bit. But at least I got Tim to admit a few things there because I think he had to.